I've always enjoyed writing, ever since I was a kid, and my English courses weren't kind of what I expected them to be. So I wanted to push myself as a writer, and the Sun certainly did that. Not necessarily in quality, but in what I wrote about and how fast I could write. It was like a challenge for me, and I found that deadline a real high.
I mean, yes, there is a degree of narcissism involved. Every columnist, most columnists, I'm not going to make a blanket generalization, but most columnists like to see their name in the paper. We had our picture in the paper, which is kind of a bad thing, because when you get my picture in the paper, we sell less copies. We don't sell less copies, we distribute less copies. People cut it out, maybe.
Fewer copies.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of challenging. As an editor, you tend to take the stories that other writers don't want. Whether that because they're just like difficult to research or interview people for, or because they're just boring or trivial or insignificant in some way.
The writing has definitely declined. I think over the past 30 years, I don't think the Sun's writing always had weak spots, and that was certainly the case when I was writing for the Sun. But I think in general, students' writing skills have declined over the last 3 decades. And if you ask professors, they'll tell you the same thing.
I'm writing something that people are actually reading. I'm putting together a paper that people, every day, if it doesn't come out, people would notice. But, our readers have standards for us, and they criticize us constantly, and that kind of feedback it's addicting. And knowing that I got to make this deadline, and then people are going to, have all day to kind of like trash it, that's something. That forces me to be the best I can every single night.
I recall there was one time when we reviewed a sort of sex manual, and the sex manual had like very graphic caricatures or like cartoons of certain depraved sexual deviant acts. So we ran it, and then when we came into the office on Monday, we realized that there were a bunch of emails from like parents and professors talking about how like our 6-year-old daughter picked up the paper and saw these like crude depictions of fellatio on the back of the paper, and at that point we sort of realized that people were actually reading the section, and that they didn't like to see sex cartoons in our section. Those were the two morals.
And I guess essentially that's what we kind of strive to do with our columnists. We want to, spark up some controversy, and we're doing a good job of it, at least with the administration right now.
There's been times where we've done some bonehead things. Like last year, we ran one of our most popular comic strips was Ant-Man, and on the cover of the Sun that day, we had an article on a lecturer was talking about how Asians kind of face a lot of times extra pressure academically and socially from their parents and from their peers. And then we ran a comic on the editorial page, basically implying that Asians were these soulless robots who really destroyed the curve for all the other students. That was a dumb move. We should have thought about that. We probably shouldn't have run the comic in the first place, and we really shouldn't have run it on the same day where we talked about these stereotypes. And there was a rally against us, and you realize that something that you don't even notice that night, the next day can strike off a huge protest. And it really forces you to kind of step back, look, and say, is there something here I'm not going to pick up on, but 100 people will tomorrow on Hill Plaza?